OSIWA. Promoting dialogue.
It's 12 o'clock in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Abuja. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Former Senegalese lawmaker describes adopted interpretative amnesty law as tricky, calls for further clarification.
Can you say that the defense and security forces did it? Can you say that somebody else did it? In my point of view, the independent commission to be able to have an inquiry about what happened during 2021 to 2022, 2025.
Barry Musa Bake inaugurated as the new president of the Togolese Senate. Guinean sociopolitical actors expressed varying opinions on September 21 referendum date set by the junta. And Waxy charges African nations to take charge of their resources as donor aid shrinks.
As Africans, we need to take charge of our resources and manage our resources. The amount of resources that we are losing from illicit financial flows, from corruption, from some of the destructive practices like galamsey, is taking away everything that we have.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Thank you for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners across the sub-region. I am Imo Edet.
And I am Sankule Janko.
Let's begin here in Senegal as the proposed interpretative amnesty law has been adopted by the National Assembly. The text was adopted on Wednesday by a majority vote after a prolonged plenary session. The law aims to exclude from the scope of the amnesty adopted at the end of former President Macky Sall's term of office offences related to blood crimes. Abdullah Hassan completes the story.
With 126 votes in favor, the National Assembly has adopted the proposed law interpreting the controversial amnesty law. 20 MPs rejected the text proposed by Deputy Amadou Ba, which aims to exclude certain offences from the scope of the amnesty. Abdou Sani is a former Senegalese MP.
The aim of interpretation is to clarify the scope of a law and its field of intervention, its field of application, and what is done. During this interpretation, it was noted that it is excluded that there is no question of protecting all those who have committed crimes, or those who have degraded human life, and all those who have contributed to the disappearance of people. So, anything that touched on the sacredness of human life had to be beyond the reach of this amnesty law.
The text therefore aims to guarantee justice for the victims of the political tensions that left almost 100 people dead between 2021 and 2024. Abdou Sani explains.
All the amnesty laws that have existed in Senegal have simply served to bury the real issues and put into oblivion issues as sensitive as murders. And so, it is this precision that has simply fueled what is now called an interpretation law, so as to enable judges to take on a certain number of cases with all the knowledge and precision they need, and to settle once and for all this question of impunity, so that Senegal can definitely turn the page on impunity in favor of equality before the law.
In a press release issued just after the adoption of the interpretative law, APR, the party of former President Macky Sall, denounced the law which it said indexes the defense and security forces.
Abdullah Hassan filed that report.
In Guinea, tensions are running high following the government's announcement of a referendum date of September 21, 2025. On that date, Guineans will be called upon to decide whether or not to adopt a new constitution. This announcement is already dividing Guinea's socio-political class. The Force Vive, for their part, rejects this date and denounced not only the absence of consultations but also the absence of an electoral timetable. Rafiu So is a member of the Force Vive of Guinea.
nous étions surpris et pour la simple raison.
Listen, we were surprised for the simple reason that we've been calling for elections for several years now, and that General Mamadou Doumbouya had promised that his time too, we will have all the elections we need to emerge from the transition. And to our surprise, yesterday, we heard that the date for the referendum had been set for September 21. We asked ourselves several questions. First of all, how can we go to elections? Let's just say that the electoral roll doesn't exist. As you know, since they came to power, the authorities have communicated widely, saying that they wanted to change the electoral file. They wanted to redo another one, whereas we offered them the old electoral file. And today, even if we take the old electoral file, we will have to make a few changes to it. There are people now over the age of 18. So, there are a few problems, and certainly, it can only take a month to do that. But we were calling for a framework for dialogue, a framework for consensual dialogue where the CNRD and the forces verbs of Guinea could meet to talk about the transition and the upcoming elections. Unfortunately, we don't have this framework for dialogue. It's a framework for dialogue that I call a decision-making framework, where all decisions concerning the transition and the next election around. Unfortunately, we don't have this framework for dialogue. We don't have a framework for decision.
Ensemble, nous allons décider comment organiser ces élections.
Rafiu Sow is a member of the Force Vive of Guinea.
Well, elsewhere in Togo, the first president of the Senate has been inaugurated. Barre Moussa Baké was unanimously elected by his fellow senators on Wednesday. Francis Boniface has more details in his report.
This second parliamentary chamber will be chaired for the next 6 years by Barre Moussa Baké. He succeeds Kujolo Dogo, who until now has held the presidency as the oldest member. Moussa Baké will be supported by a 9-member executive committee reflecting the various components of the Togolese society. The board includes 3 vice presidents, 2 administrative staff, and 3 parliamentary secretaries. Once this management team has been put in place, the 61 senators will meet this Thursday, April 3, 2025, for their first ordinary session of the year. Today's session comes 2 days after that of the deputies of the first legislature of the Fifth Republic. It should be noted that this session, which saw the election of the president of the Senate, also provided an opportunity to adopt the rules of procedure of this newly created institution.
That was a report by WDR Silvia Wadrago and voiced by Francis Boniface.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Delegations from the trio of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger will depart for Moscow today as part of a bold and strategic move to deepen security and bilateral relations. Under his entourage are ministers of foreign affairs from Bamako, Ouagadougou, and Niamey. This visit, which is the first between Russia and Central Sahel states, according to experts, signifies an intensive in regional security, alignment, and geopolitical landscape. Augustine Colley completes the story.
Abdoulaye Diouf of Mali, Karamoko Jean-Marie Traoré of Burkina Faso, and Niger's Bakary Yahou Sangare will engage with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov to discuss enhanced cooperation in defense, security, and economic development. Scheduled for April 3 to 4, 2025, this roundtable marks the first AES-Russia talks since the establishment of the Confederation of Sahel States last year. The AES describes the meeting as a crucial step towards advancing its shared goals. Bamako, Ouagadougou, and Niamey have increasingly drifted towards Russia since expelling France, a former security and economic ally of several decades, setting new paradigms. Like its neighbors in the Sahel trip, Niger has cancelled several agreements with Western powers such as the US, while denouncing its membership with security platforms like the G5 Sahel and MNGTF. Nearly 5 years after the wave of coups that swept through the region, the juntas are realigning with Russia as to grapple with ongoing insurgencies that have devastated local populations, claimed thousands of lives, and displaced millions. Mali, now chair of the Confederation, aims to foster collaboration between the region and Russia in sectors beyond security to energy and mining sectors.
Augustine Colley reporting there.
Meanwhile, the Malian army has denied that it violated the Algerian airspace following a military drone crash during the night of March 31 to April 1 in the Tinzouanten region. According to General Omar Jara, who clarified that the aircraft was operating within the limits of the national territory. In an official statement posted on the Army's social media channels, General Jara stated that the unmanned aircraft had been engaged in a targeted search and destroy mission against terrorist groups operating in the region. He insisted that the Malian armed forces remain professional and responsible in all the operations. In a statement, the Malian General Staff initially confirmed the incident, describing it as a crash with no casualties or material damage and explaining that the aircraft was carrying out a surveillance mission. However, a few hours later, the Algerian Ministry of Defense claimed to have shot down an armed reconnaissance drone after it penetrated 2 kilometers into the Algerian airspace.
Well, the executive director of the West Africa Civil Society Institute, WACSI, has urged African nations to take control of their resources and combat illicit financial flows, corruption, and destructive practices such as illegal mining. Speaking at the launch of WACSI's 20th anniversary on Wednesday, Dr. Nana Avozinu warned that massive losses from these issues leave African countries heavily reliant on Western aid, which could be withdrawn at any time. Her remarks follow the abrupt suspension of U.S. aid funding to countries, including Ghana, in January, which led to the immediate halt of critical development programs. WDR's Nadidi Tete reports.
The executive director of the West Africa Civil Society Institute, WACSI, Dr. Nana Afajinu, has called on African nations, particularly Ghana, to take full control of their natural resources and end their reliance on foreign aid. Speaking at WACSI's 20th anniversary launch in Accra, Ghana, Dr. Nana Afajinu raised concerns about how financial mismanagement, unethical practices, and destructive mining activities, commonly known as galamsey, are eroding Africa's wealth, leaving the continent reliant on Western donors.
As Africans, we need to take charge of our resources and manage our resources. The amount of resources that we are losing from illicit financial flows, from corruption, from some of the destructive practices like galamsey, is taking away everything that we have, so that we have to fall on these European Western countries who can decide to pull the plug anytime, and we are left floundering.
The WACSI director specifically pointed to Ghana's vast natural wealth, questioning why a country with abundant resources continues to depend on international aid from agencies like the USAID.
Can we imagine if we were managing our resources correctly and we had governments who were investing those resources into our development? What Ghana would be. Ghana was taking about over 160 million from USAID. Why do we need that kind of funding from USAID?
The abrupt suspension of USAID funding to many countries, including Ghana, has affected primarily livelihoods and also resulted in extensive job losses in Ghana's non-governmental organization sector, particularly northern Ghana, where the majority of USAID-funded initiatives were located. For 2 decades, WACSI has been instrumental in strengthening civil society organizations, advancing civic participation, and driving sustainable development across the sub-region. For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
The crossover now to Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu has restructured the board of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, a move expected to reshape the country's oil sector and impact the broader West Africa energy market. In the restructuring, he dismissed the chairman, Chief Pius Akinyelu, and Group Chief Executive Officer Malam Mele Kyari, along with other board members appointed in November 2023. WDR's Abuja correspondent Usman Umar reports.
Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has dismissed the leadership of NNPC Limited, removing Chairman Chief Pius Akinyelu and Group Chief Executive Officer Malam Mele Kyari, along with other board members appointed in November 2023. A new 11-member board has been announced, with Engineer Bashir Ojulari as the new Group Chief Executive Officer and Ahmadu Kida as the non-executive chairman. 6 other board members represent Nigeria's geopolitical zones, while the Ministers of Finance and Petroleum Resources have designated representatives. The restructuring authorized under the Petroleum Industry Act is aimed at improving operational efficiency, attracting investment, and boosting local content in Africa's largest oil-producing nation. President Tinubu has tasked the new board with reviewing NNPC's strategic assets and ensuring value maximization for Nigeria's oil and gas resources. Since 2023, Nigeria has attracted $17 billion in oil sector investments, and the government now targets an increase to $30 billion by 2027 and $60 billion by 2030. The administration's ambitious energy roadmap seeks to raise oil production to 3 million barrels daily and gas output to 10 billion cubic feet by the decade's end. For West Africa, Nigeria's reforms in the petroleum sector could mean greater regional energy security, increased crude supply for neighboring countries, and enhanced investment opportunities within the sub-region. The reorganization also comes as Nigeria works to revive its refining capacity with a goal of reaching 500,000 barrels per day by 2030. President Tinubu has thanked the outgoing board for their contributions, particularly in reviving the Port Harcourt and Warri refineries. The new leadership now faces the challenge of driving Nigeria's energy transformation while ensuring the sector remains competitive on the global stage. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
11 Spanish doctors have arrived in Liberia to conduct surgical operations and provide medical treatments for citizens in the central region. The group known as Liberia Physicians and Surgeons Without Borders will assist over 100 residents from Bo and surrounding counties suffering from various medical complications. Supported by Bong County Senator Prince Moe, the initiative aims to strengthen the government's healthcare delivery system. Let's join WDR's Abraham Parker in Monrovia for more.
The arrival of these medical professionals is expected to strengthen Liberia's struggling health sector, which faces numerous challenges. Speaking at the launch and welcoming ceremony in Monrovia, Senator Moye emphasizes the urgent need for improved healthcare services in the country. He also believes that collaboration in this sector will essentially address pressing health issues in Liberia.
Given the fact that you're going to be giving relief to citizens of Bong County and other counties that have been residing in Bong, being part of this services that you're going to provide. We want to say thank you.
In addition to the surgical care, Dr. Catherine Thomas Cooper, Liberia's chief medical officer, says the program will enable the exchange of knowledge and skills between the visiting and Liberian medical team.
Your expertise in surgery, anesthesiology, this mission will really provide support to those patients who cannot afford it otherwise.
Antonio Sataria, a general surgeon who doubles as the team leader, speaks of his team's ability to make a positive impact on the health of the beneficiaries.
They have prepared a lot of patients to be operated, so we hope that at least more than 100 of them can be operated this year. The more patients we can do, the more we'll try.
As the weeks-long health initiative kicks off, beneficiaries hope it serves as a vital step toward improving healthcare access and outcomes in Liberia. Stakeholders are, for their part, encouraging increased collaborations in medical services. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker reporting from Monrovia.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar, and online on wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Former Senegalese lawmaker describes adopted interpretative amnesty law as tricky, calls for further clarification. Barry Musa Baki inaugurated as the new president of Togolese Senate. Guinean sociopolitical actors expressed varying opinions on the September 21 referendum date set by the junta. And Waxy charges African nations to take charge of their resources as donor aid shrinks. Still ahead, we do have the guest interview and sport news. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
Well, don't forget you can listen to us live on wadr.org and full live stream on YouTube and Facebook.
Let's take you to Sierra Leone, where the Ministry of Health on Wednesday began vaccinating frontline healthcare workers and high-risk individuals against Mpox. Freetown launched the vaccination drive after it secured 61,300 doses of vaccine from the UN Health Agency, WHO. Amanda Clemens, Social Mobilization Coordinator for the Health Ministry, said children aged 12 and above are also targeted in the campaign. Christopher Atisu reports.
Sierra Leone is embarking on a vaccination campaign against Mpox month after the government in January declared it a public emergency. The inoculation exercise, which begins in the western region of the country, adds to measures such as broader surveillance to curb the spread of the deadly disease. According to Amanda Clement, more than 100 health workers at 34 military hospitals where Mpox cases are tested and treated had received vaccine doses at the official launch. To reduce vaccine hesitancy among the population, Health Minister Dr. Austin Dembe was the first to receive the jab, a move he says symbolizes trust, safety and effectiveness of the vaccine. Dembe told local press that the government will continue to sustain surveillance and regular testing of suspected cases to reduce the scale of transmission. Sierra Leone has so far recorded 125 cases of Mpox, including 29 females and 96 males. While 52 patients have recovered, there are 71 active cases with 2 fatalities. Mpox is caused by a virus from the same family as smallpox, manifesting in a high fever and skin lesion. While the World Health Organization in 2024 declared its highest level of alert on the viral disease by the end of January 2025, 130,000 cases of Mpox, including over 280 deaths, were recorded from 130 countries and territories in all 6 WHO regions.
Christopher Atsu filed that report.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
Well, in continuation of the discussion on the adopted interpretative amnesty law in Senegal, a former lawmaker, Sheku Omar Sy, is our guest in this segment. Speaking with WDR, Mr. Sy calls for clarity in the area of compensation while describing the law as and its interpretation as tricky. Mr. Sy is also the president of the Observatory for Monitoring Economic Development Indicators in Africa.
This law that has been adopted yesterday by the Member of Parliament, mostly by the holding party, PASSEF, means today that the justice will be able to pursue people that were involved in aftermath of June 21st to 2021 to 2022, because they had an amnesty law that the former president has left behind him. And what they're trying to say with this law, interpretative law, is that crimes that has been committed between these 2 to 3 years will be now, the justice will be able to find the people who did it, which has brought a lot of questions, because people think also that PASSEF was involved during this time in some manifestation, some fighting between the APR and PASSEF. So people also think that behind that, people like the defense and security forces can be pursued, because we're talking about 60 people that has lost their life during that time.
Victims that we're talking about cuts across, and sometimes they include people's businesses. They include passers-by. They include people who don't even have anything to do politically, who somehow got injured or lost a loved one within that crisis. Will this compensation look at those businesses, look at the people who were caught in the web of this destruction and everything that happened within that period?
That's not clear, because what we seen mostly is that they're trying to talk about the people who has passed away, and also that they who did it. It is exact. Can you say that the defense and security forces did it? Can you say that somebody else did it? You need it. In my point of view, you needed a independent commission to be able to have an inquiry about what happened during 2021 to 2022, 2025. And what you said also, you have a lot of people that had been in this fighting that has seen their businesses being impacted by this political turmoil. You have gas stations, you have supermarkets, you have even normal people who have seen their businesses and being attacked. So how can we follow up with that and be sure that they would be compensated? This law doesn't bring any clarity on that. And also, who will decide about this compensation? Because one of these people that were involved in this fighting, Pastef, was here among the fighters on the ground. So it's really tricky right now for the justice to see through that, but we'll see how they're going to move forward with this law.
Sheikh Omar Sy is a former lawmaker and the president of the Observatory for Monitoring Economic Development Indicators in Africa. And in sport news, the latest FIFA ranking has been released. Well, Sankule will be taking the lead on that story, which is my favorite, but I'm sure he has yours. What story are you starting with, Sankule?
Of course, I am starting, like you said, with the FIFA rankings, because we've seen some very interesting, movements within the rankings. But let's start off with Morocco, because they remain the top-ranked team in Africa, climbing 2 places to 12 in the world, actually, from 14. The Atlas Lions maintain their position thanks to an impressive 2 wins, in their 2026, FIFA World Cup qualifiers. Meanwhile, Senegal also remains second in Africa, but the Teranga Lions dropped 2 places to 19 in the world from their previous 17th position. Nigeria, meanwhile, the Super Eagles climb 1 place from 44 to 43 in the world. Nigeria sits 6th in African rankings behind Cote d'Ivoire. Would you believe it? Nigeria are not into top 5 ranked team, because the top 5 ranked teams as it is are Morocco is 1st, Senegal 2nd, Egypt 3rd, Algeria 4th, and Cote d'Ivoire 5th.
This is enough to give someone a bad day.
Oh, well, but interestingly though, for me it's a surprise, because I was hoping that they were actually going to drop, but they've actually,
So it's a good one.
It's a good one, because they've climbed at least one spot, from where they were previously, to another place. But we've also from some fixtures as well in the CAF Africa Cup of Nations. Quickly, because Morocco, that is the host country, will take on Zambia, tonight. Meanwhile, Egypt will also take on Burkina Faso. Egypt would love to, bounce back from their previous defeat to South Africa. Meanwhile, Burkina Faso, it was a good start for them. Following their 2-1 win against Cameroon, and now they would like to maintain that, because a victory for them will secure them qualification to the next round.
Indeed. Are people really following this under 17 CAF Nations Cup?
Well, people are. You see some exciting football like this, where you have raw talent in African talent. Tournament. So if you really want to enjoy free-flowing football, I think you should watch the Africa Cup of Nations under 17.
Indeed, and I think CAF should put more money in terms of its publicity, just as it does for the senior men's competition. Yeah. All right, that's sport news so for now. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Seg, Sheikh Jai, and Mam Kudi, and the rest of the technical team for their support. Do interact with us on all of our social media platforms: X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, RWDL News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is our flagship environment program, Enviroscope, with Abdullah Hassan. I am Imo Edet.
And I am Sankule Janko.
Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio.